as well. And so things are looking quite good now. And basically here in most provinces, well, things are back to normal. With a slight tweak, say my wife went back to her hometown this morning, and the train, she sent me a photo of the train, a high-speed train, and it was full. So in regarding travel within the same province, well, there's not such restriction as well, test or well, other restrictions. So people can travel basically as you want to. So unless you are traveling across the province as well, you might need kind of test. Well, but in most cases, well, where it's free where you want to go. And so, well, and gasoline demand is actually growing quite strong. I mean, this month, compare with last month, well, because, well, when we are looking at the same points as in the past few years, it's quite weak. It's weak, but actually on a month-on-month comparison, it's growing quite significantly. So Chinese refineries will actually had higher their gasoline yield ratio as well, quite significantly. I mean, in January, why they cut their yield of diesel, say like Maoming Petrochemical, Sinopec Maoming Petrochemical in Guangdong province. Well, it cut the yield ratio of diesel to gasoline to 0.87. Then the yield ratio of diesel to gasoline to 0.87. The low is the electoral low. So Chinese refineries are actually increasing gasoline production and cutting diesel because, well, this is a low demand.
Victor, in that sense, it sounds like China is also contributing on a tangible demand side, even though we have maybe a slight drop off in the first month, January, February,
yes,
but the demand is solid. And
yes.
Typically when GDP numbers are identified as a forecast in China, they really seem to become targets in essence, that it's rare that they don't achieve them. Vladimir, let's bring in a little update on Libya. We've seen some news there over the last week or so, some positive news. The sort of conflicting parties have come to some consensus over the formation of a new government, and at the same token, we still seem to have strikes at ports. Obviously, OMV actively involved in Libya. What's the outlook from the ground there? Is there any reason to be concerned that the incredible recovery could be reversed?
Mute myself.
Yes. Self-censorship, it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, no, John, I don't think so. I mean, yes, you have this kind of balancing, and there are still, various groups, various interest groups in Libya. But I think the good news, as you said, that both main faction have actually united on the way forward is certainly a sign of that the situation is going to a more stable one rather than deteriorating. To be honest, we have seen strikes at ports, even at times when Libya was really quite stable, and as long as I can remember, NOC was always able to handle those demands. So I wouldn't see that to be something of a lasting impact. And as I say, I think the country at the moment is moving to a more stable situation.
Robin, the big question as the February drifts on will be, will Saudi Arabia continue with this unilateral 1 million barrel a day cut that has really kind of seen to prop this market? Of course, it was already on the move, and this has been somewhat of the icing on the cake. What's your own sense of the need for that? Has Saudi done the reason they've done it, the reason they might pull back from it? What's your own analysis as OPEC will meet in 3 weeks' time?
Yeah, look, I think it's now a slightly tricky one because, as we've been saying, the longer term outlook ought to be good, and yet still seeing that in the numbers is a bit cloudy. There's still plenty of clouds over demand. And I think the issue is having made a 1 million barrel a day cut. That's quite a lot, right? That's a lot to bring back on the market in one move. And then if the Saudis were to say to everybody else, well, we're going to bring back our 1 million this month, and nobody else can do anything, then there'll be resistance to that too. So that means that the Saudis would have to hand out some increases to probably to Russia, at least, maybe to the other members as well. And then you'd be looking at an overall increase of more than 1 million. I think the more likely thing would be some kind of agreement on a phased increase overall, and then the Saudis kind of keep quiet on exactly what they're going to bring back, but they start trimming that 1 million.
I mean,
not bringing it back immediately.
We had gone into the sort of, we're now coming to the first year and early of this agreement, and we've had a very specific roadmap in 2020, and they were going to increase by this, and then in January they were meant to increase by 2 million, they didn't, and so on. Are we now kind of at, well, that roadmap is no longer the guideline, it's now this, day one situation? We go into every meeting with some sense of like anything could be the outcome. I mean, the 1 million barrel a day thing that Saudi cut was from left field. It was not part of anything. So there is kind of an unknown now in a way going forward. What's your own sense of roadmap versus ad hoc at each meeting?
Yeah, I think it was Patton who said no plan survives contact with the enemy. I think that's what we've seen here, right? And the virus has been a pretty resilient enemy and a surprising one. So the plans that were laid out obviously have not been followed exactly. And I think Prince Abdulaziz also has the view that he likes to keep the speculators on their toes and do the unexpected. And laying out a very clear roadmap and sticking to it is, in that sense, a bit of a gift to the speculators, as he would see it. So he is prepared to do the unexpected, and he did that with the 1 million barrel a day cut. And I think that's why we may see the Saudis just keeping a bit quiet on what they're going to do about bringing back their production, having maybe some kind of a phased increase for everybody, but then the Saudis having the latitude and the discretion to gradually reduce that 1 million barrel a day cut, which they're going to have to do, because they can't start giving away market share to everybody else and still having such a substantial cut.
Victor, what is the impact on China demand, Asia demand going forward as we now move above $60 oil, maybe up to 65? We had one of our commentators yesterday even say he wouldn't be surprised to see 80 in the coming months. How would China adapt to those kind of prices, Asian demand? Could it start to taper if prices keep climbing?
Well, high prices are actually depressing demand from China already. I mean, from now on. And also it's because of the Chinese New Year too. So now, like, refiners are slowing down their purchase for May delivery cargo as well after they finish April cargo as well. And actually now, refiners are also considering one factor is that's port congestion. Say like in Shandong, refiners are thinking about, cargoes for delivery in the further future, because, port congestion remains in Shandong. Say some January cargoes, will not be discharged until after the holiday for the Chinese New Year. That's the middle of February.
So how long are cargoes having to wait before discharging?
Yeah, say like in the biggest port in Qingdao, that could be about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So it is quite long. So they are thinking about further cargoes in the distant future to avoid the congestion. So that's one thing too. And say high price is also a factor, but now the freight is relatively low. So that's one factor that is contributing to larger shipments to China. And say like last year, some Chinese refineries, say like state-owned refineries, didn't turn their profit margins into the positive territory until August. So they benefit. They made good profits in the last few months of last year. So if prices go beyond $60, they might not be that enthusiastic for purchase. So they might dampen demand to some degree.
Yeah, the outlook there. Vladimir, on the point of the demand recovery, 6 million barrels a day, you touched on it earlier. We're already into mid-February. We haven't seen that demand start yet. And the outlook for the average for the year is 5 to 6 by most multilateral agencies. We're going to have to start revising that downward, I think, or moving forward, unless we see some bumper. My wife won't let me book airline tickets for the summer yet. I'm sort of biting at the bit to do so, but she keeps saying no.
Yeah, I agree. I think the jet topic, although solved largely from the refining, obviously, as we discussed, I think last time, where the refining complexes globally, I think were, to my surprise, able to really put up with the problem of where to go with the jet, but the demand is nowhere. And jet is a substantial part of the global barrel, global 100 million demand. I mean, not now.
But certainly the recovery barrels.
Correct. Yeah.
Mike Muller said on Sunday, 50% of that 6 million is jet.
Yes, correct. And I don't see that. You might have glimpses of hope, maybe kind of in December. I think where before the kind of reemergence of some of the other variants, but now in Europe and other countries obviously are shutting down their borders. They're shutting along whole flights, and I don't think that's a situation that will be that will recover within weeks. It will be more months. So if you have no recovery in jet, let's say until really summer or even later, then the 6 millions are just simply not possible.
Robin, one of the supply questions, of course, is the rapprochement between the US and Iran. We've seen in recent weeks, whether coincidental or not, welcome your view, the sanctions busting tankers of Iranian crude into Indonesia. Most recently, the US had seemed to grab a tanker. I'm wondering what your thought is on that trend. Is it increasing, and where do you see the rapprochement going?
Yeah, look, it's pretty clear that Iranian exports are up, and they've been using these routes, Turkish, the Malaysian route and the Indonesian route, and some close to home to get their exports out. I don't think I would link that to lower enforcement by the US. I think I think it's the Iranians pushing harder and perhaps some willingness by buyers to kind of risk things a bit more, but I don't think the US has let up enforcement. I think when the US wants to relax its sanctions a bit, it'll do so and make that more public, so that actually is a gesture of goodwill and moving forward, not just through kind of laziness or inattention. However, I think on the rapprochement, still, it's pretty hard to get a read on what the administration's approach is. There's been some pretty conflicting signals from it. The idea that Iran should go first in some way and restore its compliance. Obviously, the Iranians feel that they weren't the ones who left the deal, and it's up to the US to go back to compliance. I think the movements in recent weeks seems to have been towards a kind of let's go together kind of move. So both sides taking some steps to restore compliance, not fully, but stage by stage. So we don't get back to the JCPOA all in one step. Seems to be that's the way things are going.
Do you think we can expect progress before the Iranian election? I mean, at the end of the day, it's all with Khamenei. He's not up for election, so why should this disrupt the process of rapprochement?
Yeah, and I think there'll be a desire from both sides really to make some progress before the Iranian elections, so that from the Rouhani camp's point of view, they can show that their policy wasn't a complete failure. They can give a bit of a momentum to whoever the moderate reformist candidate is, and from the US side, so they could also make a bit of progress, have something to build on with whoever the new president is. Obviously, as you say, look, all this is ultimately hostage to dynamics within Iran and the leadership that go beyond the president. But the president whoever it is, will carry out the negotiations, and so will be an important figure, whoever that is. It'll also be a sign of the trend of which way the Iranian system is moving. Whoever emerges as president. But I think we'll see some limited moves before the elections, but I think it will be quite a long road. And as I've said before, I don't think we'll see a substantial restoration of Iranian exports until late this year at the earliest.
And I also think the Israeli elections play a role in there as well, in terms of where Netanyahu goes and how disruptive he could be to a rapprochement. Let's go to the survey question today on this euphoria on the oil price. Basically, how high can Brent crude oil prices go in 2021? If only for 5 minutes. Where is the ceiling on the year? 65, which seems pretty close, 70, 75 plus. I don't know what number one pulls out. I saw actually a headline somewhere today for $100 oil this year. But nonetheless, where does the room think the high on oil prices could be this year? And we'll go to closing comments. Victor, China was the first country, I think, to sanction Trump and the former administration officials. Today, we have the Trump trial begins in the Congress. Does any of this matter to China? Does China care? What is the outlook at the moment for the US-China relationship?
Well, the trade seems to still be going well. I mean, say like not long ago, China bought over 1 million metric ton of corn from the US. So China is not actually, taking any special moves, before, Biden makes clear is, strategies on China. So like a few days ago, he made this announcement about, how he treats how he treats Russia and China. I mean, regarding as, serious competitors as well. And so we are waiting further to find out what kind of detailed, specific policies he would have on China. Well, though he also said he wouldn't continue the Trump policies on China. So we are still kind of waiting to find out about, what he might be doing to China. But the trade seems, not to be effective much yet, no.
Yeah, it seems that trade goes on, and that even though the barking or the shouting might be going up and down, but trade continues. Vladimir, your thoughts, outlook for the rest of the week. I don't know, we dropped off there, but obviously we have other data points to come this week. We've seen both the inventory numbers in the US going down continuously, the rig counts going up. What do you think will guide the market through the week? Do vaccinations matter as a data point now for the direction of the oil markets? Vladimir.
Oh, sorry, I haven't. My internet connection dropped. I think yes, the demand.
You really need to go 5G. You see, you don't have Huawei. You're going to have interrupted internet.
You know how it is. The worst mobile signal is in the center of London. It's not because of the signal. It's about the number of people that try to.
There you go. Everybody's getting up to work.
I think it's going to be really the demand recovery, and to be honest, I don't think it's going to be the vaccination per se, because it will be things really like, the cases, people that get sick, people that still die. And I think if the vaccination really works and brings those things down, then yes, you could have some restoration of kind of flights and the demand coming forward. But I don't think that kind of the transmission in the world of a virus from a vaccination to demand is just one-to-one. There's gonna be hiccups on the way, and I think people need to be a little bit more careful in looking at that. Yes, I mean, at the moment the market seems to be very constructive on that.
Yeah. Let's get the result of the survey before giving Robin the last word this morning. How high can Brent crude oil prices go in 21, if only for 5 minutes? $70, get the biggest number, but I would say there, Robin, they're pretty much spread across all three. Basically, nobody has any idea, but it's higher than it is now. Your thoughts looking forward, Robin? Do you think the Trump trial is a story or not? Are there any other things in the US, this stimulus dragging on? What is going to guide the market over the coming days?
Yeah, I mean, I think the price votes that we just had there are interesting. Look, I think as the recent little LNG episode should show us, even in a overall depressed market, you can get these spikes. And I think the production restraint will be very important there. My own bet in the oil price for the end year price was actually over $70 a barrel, even though I don't think that's sustainable. But I do think you can have these spikes. The Trump trial, very interesting for US politics. Don't think it has any impact on oil really. But the stimulus of the passage of stimulus package clearly does. Otherwise, I think we'll just be looking forward to the same indicators that we have been before. I mean, obviously, we're watching Libya closely, watching Iran and any progress on that deal, and watching any more news or ideas that might come out about the future.
I mean, in a market where we're kind of in the three-quarter glass full sentiment, it doesn't seem like there's anything notable to identify that can suppress that three-quarter full sentiment. It is regarded. I mean, yesterday, 4,000 people die every day in the US with the vaccine. The rollout stumbles along, has no bearing. The oil price continues to rise. Is there anything you could identify that really puts a lid on this upward motion?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, look, US cases are well down, still very serious, but well down. UK cases are coming down. Now, it probably isn't the vaccine yet. There's probably other factors, but still, it's encouraging. No, I think I think it'll continue to be a bumpy ride, but hopefully there's no major surprise like a huge fourth wave and a huge set of lockdowns again. If we don't get that and we don't get a massive glut of supply from a change in OPEC policy or Iran, looks reasonably clear. A bit of a pullback, a few dollars possibly, but hopefully not another crash.
Yeah, and it seems like the funds, the investment funds, are hungry, looking for yield, and maybe getting scared of a frothy stock market. And oil looks like it has some value. I think there's some run on that yet. We're going to get lots of insight from Chris Bake, familiar to a lot of people. One of the top guys at Vitol. He's going to be our halftime talk interview this week with the outlook from his perspective on where this is all going. It'll be published tomorrow. But for now, thank you, Victor. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Vladimir. All have a safe day, economically productive, and we will catch up later in the week. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.